Hey there, everyone. Thanks for tuning in again. Woody Bendle here from Next Level Growth Strategies. Let me start out this week's business tip with a bit of a riddle. What do pricing decisions, surveys, and digital advertising have in common? Well, if you think about it long enough, you'll probably come up with a number of things that they actually might or actually do have in common. I mean, they're all things most of us probably have some experience with to some extent, and each one of them can be used to inform the other. But here's the thing. There is a big difference between familiarity, exposure, and real experience. And that difference can turn out to be a lot of dollars made, or wasted, or worse, lost. And let me just say, in the case of 3 different organizations I met with this past week, there was a clear relationship between inexperience and wasted or lost revenues. Okay, so stick around because I know you are going to benefit from this week's tip. All right, welcome back everyone. And before we jump on in, if you're a fan of our videos, be sure to give us a like and go ahead and subscribe to our YouTube channel so you never miss out on one of our weekly business tips. Now, just this past week, I had conversations with 3 very different organizations about 3 very different challenges, but there was one unifying, well, actually 2 unifying things that were common across all 3 of them. And that was measurement, or rather uncertainty about measurement. And now that I think about it, there were actually a few more things in common, and that was inconsistency, inaccuracy, and inexperience. And in one case, I'm not entirely convinced that the problem was the result of inexperience. Well, at least not on the part of the folks doing the measurement. But I do believe that they were taking advantage of their clients' inexperience, and that's pretty scummy, but unfortunately not uncommon. So with one organization, this business owner suspected he was leaving money on the table by not pricing some of his organization's products a little higher. Now, this business had been around for quite a few years, and they had a lot of data in terms of unit sales and prices paid per unit across a lot of different SKUs. And when I asked why he felt he had room to take prices up on some of his products, his answer was all about increased costs and not about the market, nor his competition, nor his customers. Now, this is not an uncommon answer or practice when it comes to price decisions, right? We need to make a reasonable return or markup on our products, but cost plus pricing can actually be costly. And as it turned out for this one business, that was absolutely the case. Now, you might recall from your Econ 101 class the law of demand. For most goods and services, higher prices means fewer units sold, and lower prices means more unit sales. The key to this, though, is understanding the effect of that trade-off. Or if you dig way back into your econ class, you might remember they called this the price elasticity of demand. I'm not going to turn this into an economics lesson, but as it turned out with this business, they already had plenty of evidence that taking prices up might not work out for them the way they'd hoped due to how their business performed whenever they ran a particular promotion. And when they shared some of their weekly sales data with us, sure enough, they didn't have the room for price increases that they thought they did. They did have some items where they could do this, but it wasn't what they thought. And if they'd continued to increase their prices on their core items, it was going to lead to declining sales. By lowering their prices on a number of their items, they're actually going to be able to increase their revenues and profits. Now, a different conversation with another business leader was about a different kind of measurement altogether. This organization had just spent a decent chunk of change on a survey that was supposed to help them figure out how to better position their services in the market. And the individual I was meeting with was skeptical of the research's conclusions. Now, this is something that we unfortunately come across way too often, and I blame this problem on tools like SurveyMonkey and Qualtrics. Don't get me wrong, these are great organizations and they have great products. They're really useful in the right hands. And by right hands, I mean someone who has been trained in this stuff and has experience with survey design, sample theory, and statistics. Oh, and experience in helping business decision makers correctly interpret survey results. Now, these tools have become pretty intuitive and pretty easy to use, which unfortunately makes a lot of inexperienced people believe that all of a sudden they're experts at this stuff. And with this executive, this was a situation where she didn't have much experience with surveys in the past. And unfortunately, the organization decided to work with a group that also didn't have the chops they claimed they did. We've all heard the expression garbage in, garbage out. And in this case, a badly designed survey led to bad conclusions. The good news is that the executive's intuition was really good, having been in this business and industry for quite a while. and they decided not to act on the recommendations. Now, this third conversation is something I'm probably going to do a whole video on later on down the road because it is a huge problem that we unfortunately come across, again, way too often. But the short version of it is this. Measuring the impact of advertising, and in particular digital advertising, like paid search, paid social, digital display, and so on, isn't as straightforward nor as easy as a lot of people try to make it out to be. There are a lot of challenges even when everything is being done correctly and accurately, like which ad gets the credit for a conversion, or how much credit should an ad get if a lot of different ads are being used and they're all being seen by multiple people multiple times. This is called attribution, and doing it right is really hard. But unfortunately, some of the issues around this are similar to the challenges related to the surveys. It's gotten to be pretty easy to do digital advertising, and setting up the basics in terms of conversion tracking isn't too difficult either. But if you don't know what you're doing, this can lead to a lot of issues when it comes to interpreting the effectiveness of your advertising. And in this business's situation, they'd signed on with a small digital shop within the past year. This was the first time they'd spent anything on digital advertising, and the business owner was having a hard time reconciling the ad performance reports he'd been receiving. In his mind, if these digital ads were really doing what the agency was claiming, his business should have been way up. Now, business was still pretty good, but it sure seemed like it should have been a whole lot better. And he was right. The ROIs on the different ads and channels were absurd and way beyond norms for any vertical. And the reason for that was a very common problem, and that's double and triple dipping. This is when someone views or engages with 2 or 3 or more different ads, and each of those ads is giving 100% of the credit for the conversion and sale. And when you add up all the returns on all the different ads, well, you know where that's going, right? Okay, so here's this week's tip. Running and growing a successful business is really hard work. You have to know and do a lot of things, and do a lot of things really well. And even then, there always seems to be unforeseen obstacles that makes it more complicated and even more challenging. Over the years, each of us develops skills for gauging how the business is performing and how well we're navigating the challenges. We all have our areas of expertise, and over time, we develop invaluable intuition about a variety of things. But we can't and shouldn't rely on our gut when we encounter things that we don't have any experience with. And let's face it, in today's age, there's more and more stuff coming at us that we don't have experience with. Look, there are plenty of people, though, that are out there who do have the right kinds of experiences, and we can tap into them, and it doesn't need to cost an arm and a leg. When you do encounter things beyond your areas of expertise, one of the most valuable things you can do is tap into your trusted network for recommendations and advice. Don't go it alone. Don't wing it. I'll guarantee that you know somebody who will be willing to help you and your business out. And that's an intuition you can always trust. So there you have it. That's this week's tip for getting your organization to its next level of profitable growth by creating clarity, alignment, and consistency. Thank you again for watching, and we'll see you next time.